introduce Philip, and also thanks for joining us, you guys. This will actually be used as a resource for FIEC, your sponsors, and then also with the Geneva Network and Reach Australia, and over the Multiply Network in New Zealand, I'm hoping as well, Austin. All right, excellent. Okay, Philip's been involved. I've known Philip for a few years, and he's been involved here as the Educational Lead for Technology and Learning Spaces at Charles Sturt University. And what that means is, among other things, he's been equipping lecturers on how to engage students for good online learning principles and with digital technology. And so if ever there is a skill set that's useful these days, it's this one. Philip's been doing this one way or another for 20 years. He worked in Australia, worked commercially, was involved with the Sydney Olympics, Optus, others, and has spent some time in Abu Dhabi as well, working there in the Emirates. So Philip's been living in Port Macquarie. How long have you been up there now, mate? Port Macquarie?
Probably 3.5 years, or over three.
It's gone quickly. Yes, for 3.5 years, and now he's moving to beautiful Cowra very soon. So, so his wife Simone can take a new job. So, Philip, thank you very much for being with us. I'll say a prayer, and then we're all yours, mate.
Thank you.
And Father, we ask, please, thank you for the wisdom and skills that you've given Philip over many years. Ask, please, you bless this time that he might teach us, that we might learn how to be better teachers online and to better communicate your word to people. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. We're all yours, mate. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. So I'll just share my screen here. So I've got a PowerPoint here, which I'm trying to swap the screen, but it's taking a while. Swap. Okay, I got that now. Okay, so everyone, you probably noticed that I'm looking down, even though my webcam is up above over here, because my laptop webcam is all the way down here, which has a very awkward kind of angle. So I didn't want to use that webcam, but I thought I'd put another webcam up here. So excuse me if I have to always be looking down at my computer screen on this. But I wanted to start by just kind of showing you the actual kind of environment that you're pretty familiar with. As you can see there, everyone's probably familiar with that. And I wanted to kind of title this session called Let Me In. So what that means is you've got two layers here. You've got a layer that is the presenting layer, and then you've got the audience layer, the layer that receives the information. And how do we let the audience into our presentation? How do we invite them in as part of that journey? And everything is a story. When you're presenting, you're actually in some way or another, subconsciously as well, you are kind of giving a story structure. Now, it's even though inside your presentation or inside your talk or how you talk with your audience, you may tell a story, but this is about story structure. Some people do it very, very well. Other people do it less well. Not as good, and other people apply stories in a very linear, straight line, which can kind of, I would say a formula for insomnia sometimes. I'd use that kind of term at the university as well. I just wanted to also say that if you've got any questions, just write them down in a notebook, because I want to show you another method to write it in a notebook. But at the moment, just write it down in a notebook in a traditional way, and then we can revisit this again on that. Now, just before we go on, just if everyone can just mute their microphone phone for me, because I'm just hearing a little bit of a feedback there. So just to begin, I'm going to introduce you to two technology which will help hopefully invite those audiences in as part of your talk and engage them. So one is called Poll Everywhere, which is this one here. And if you've got your mobile phone, especially if you've got an Apple, who's got an whoever has an Apple, you can use your camera and you can scan that QR code in your camera and it will come up with a website. Or if you don't, you can use this one here. Just move that. So you can use this website here on your mobile phone. Or if you haven't got a mobile phone, just open up another browser window and just type in that website. So you've got two choices there, the QR code or the website here. Now, as we go through, this website will always be on. So this web address will always be on. So yeah, so you if you forget it, then yeah, it will always be displayed. Now, just the other thing, if say for example, if you are getting lag or slow internet, just switch off your video and just have the sound on and have the actual sharing screen. I mean, the webcam off if you can. Sometimes if you switch off the webcam, you also switch off the desktop as well, sharing of the desktop. Okay, I'm just going to move on now. We'll revisit that website later on. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to use something general, which is how to get to know your audience. And when I'm doing this, these features here, think about how what kind of questions would you ask your audience? So I'm going to be showing very simple stuff here at the beginning, and then we'll go on to a bit more kind of interesting stuff. So the first thing is, I want to get to know my audience, and I want to know where were you born. So if you wanted to open up your mobile phone or your browser, the website is the website is here. So if you still forget the website, it's just that website there. And then just type in, put in your finger, using your finger, where were you born? Okay, good work.
Wait a minute.
And you can use your finger to zoom out in your mobile phone on that. Okay, great. So as you can see here, not only just as the presenter can see the background of the other audience, but everyone gets to see it as well. So it democratizes the information, and so it makes everyone getting involved and inviting everyone to get to know all the audience. So you can see here a lot of people are from the East Coast, from Queensland all the way down to Victoria. We've got a few certain people, I think, from the Philippines, obviously me from Vietnam, and then we also got South Africa there as well. I think that's South Africa. Is that right? Somebody from South Africa. Okay, so the other question I like to pose is, and this technology here, you've got here the map. So you can upload a picture of a map, and then another way you can frame the question is getting the audience to type it in. So I'd like to know everyone, and which church do you belong to? Okay, great. Very interesting. So you got here Cross Crown, Melbourne, the Lakes Evangelical Church. Yep, Sydney, Redemption Hill. Yep. So Auckland, wow, Auckland Evangelical. So we got someone from over the Tasman. I think, Al, you mentioned that before. Vine Church, yep. Albury, oh, wow, down south. Okay, and Gold Coast, Lakes Church. So as you can see here, this is a way where I can just ask the audience, about where the church they belong to. But think about it. What kind of questions, while we're doing this, just what kind of questions would you like to ask using these features? So another way is, again, I'm using a normal map here. Where is your church location-wise? While you're doing that, all I'm doing is just using a PowerPoint presentation, and I just downloaded a plugin, and it works with this app here called Poll Everywhere, and it's synced to everyone's mobile phone. So when they log into this website here, every time I go and change the slide with a new question, it updates it on my mobile phone. So it's really easy and responsive. Okay, so yeah, so you can see here the trend a lot in New South Wales, and then you've got mid Queensland, mid coast Queensland, I would say, or mid north coast Queensland. And then you've got like down south of the Queensland border as well, and then you've got one in Victoria. So it just gives me an indication of my type of audience, and it's a good question to kind of lead into to the presentation. Another way, like here's an example here. Say, for example, this is a traditional way. You've got here, rate your experience with technology. No experience is one finger. And then you've got here practically an expert on the right-hand side. So if you can just, in your chats window, put in from 1 to 5 for me. I'm just going to load up the chat, and you can see in the chat window, where's my chat? I guess when I'm sharing, I don't think I can see my chat on that. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. You could show it in a visual way and ask the audience to do the chat. There is advantages and disadvantages of using chat. So I'm going to reframe it and using, again, Poll Everywhere, or the same technology. Okay, rate your level of technology skills in this one here. Yeah. Okay, great. So as a presenter, I can feel like the majority of the people are leaning towards more kind of extremely knowledgeable. And then we've got a few, one or two kind of in the middle towards the more less knowledgeable on that. So I really, I like to use these kind of leading kind of questions, because I get to know my audience. There's so many different ways of doing it. And I'm going to show you some more examples later on, but more kind of controversial questions. I've been teaching for a number of years now, and in order to get critical thinking, we need to go at a higher risk when we're asking questions on that. So, so we'll look at some more kind of questions that are develop more that tension. Okay, so let's pause there for a second. I'm just going to go. Yeah, so let's pause there for a second, and I'll just stop sharing so I can see my chat. Okay, great. If you want to unmute your microphone, tell me what do you think so far, and what kind of questions, or how would you use this in your presentation or online, online talk with your church? Or I have used this kind of feature even at a conference, talking with hundreds of people. I really get to know them, and I really understand and hopefully engage them in my talk as well. So just tell me. Let's spend 5 minutes and let's talk about what do you think about these features and how would you use it in your presentation?
So Phil, I think it's a pretty neat technology that you've got there. So I can see this being very beneficial for larger scales, and like maybe seminars with 100 people if you're wanting to pull everyone quickly. But for smaller groups, you could probably just ask them all individually and they can contribute. But it does seem like you could get some good interactivity onto something like a seminar.
Yeah.
I was thinking that we're a small group, but we could use something like that for engaging kids. If you want to get, we're trying to think about how to involve kids in our church meetings. We're using Zoom, and we could get them to do something fun or silly or engage with the technology with their parents' help or something, and just give them more sense that they're involved, not just it's mum and dad watching things. So, I don't know how I do it, but it makes me want to think about how to involve kids with some pictures and pointing and what have you.
Yeah.
I think I was just thinking, just for even like your service introduction, as you're trying to get a bit of engagement, or maybe right at the start of the sermon as you're trying to just get people into the topic or whatnot. Like it's a fun way. We've been trying to do just one word answer type questions, but I think that just gives you something fresh to put in front of people. So yeah, it's helpful. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, those are very generalized questions that I've just started with. You can get really creative with it, and I'll give you some more examples later on, but it really depends on how you want to shape your session with the audience. Now, Austin, you mentioned about like it's probably more appropriate for larger groups. It's also, I think it's almost kind of appropriate for smaller groups as well as larger groups. The advantages of having also like a small group as well. You've got people who may not want to, they may want to answer the questions, but they want to stay anonymous, for example. So that's why I gave you the example of, 1 finger, 5 finger, how many technology you want to use. Some people may feel nervous about that or embarrassed that they don't want to talk about it. But if you get into more controversial kind of questions, like, for example, I think, Jai, we were talking about like, one of the more sensitive questions for men these days is about pornography. I mean, if you wanted to ask that, and we've got 5 people in a session, and we could use this poll, and we could connect with the audience, and the audience can engage with us without having to risk the that layer of identity as well, and so staying anonymous and still be in a safe place, but you get to know the audience and also having them to reflect on things as well if you're going to be asking really kind of hard questions on that. So hopefully that kind of helped there. I've used this in my classroom. I teach design, and sometimes the design industry at the moment, education-wise, it's low attendance. I think a lot of people wanting to go into science, engineering, IT is pretty big as well. and I teach IT, which is the front end side, which has a lot more attendance, but on the design side, you might only have 5 students, and I would use this part in my face-to-face and online session as well. So I'll just continue on with my presentation. Okay, so again, I mean, I'm kind of preaching to the converted here. Everyone can see this type of environment, which is very familiar with everyone. Let me just say, I mean, I work with learning spaces, and there's 3 layers to, well, 3 layers to learning spaces. And even though a lot of people don't understand, but spaces really, really guide the way we learn and also manage knowledge as well. So I'll just quickly go through it. So one layer, the first layer is called the physical layer, which is all the chairs and the props and the where the projector is and where the lectern is, where the pulpit is, and it guides how we should be sitting and where we should be facing. So that's the physical side. The communication side says that we all should be facing the front, and there's a presenter there that's transmitting the information out to a mass of audience, which is the communication layer. And then the knowledge management side, which is how do we collect that knowledge as an audience? Some people write notes. So for example, here, that's another angle. And here's another angle where students are writing notes and jotting down information as well on their laptops. So that's the way they manage knowledge information. The problem is we don't know how to manage knowledge from a presenter presentation. How do we invite those audience in? So my question to you is this. Describe the process or what is happening in this picture here, and try not to use the teaching or learning adjectives. So even on this kind of scene here, just describe to me what kind of activity or even like knowledge input that you see in here. What's happening in these pictures here. So if I go to the next screen, you get to interact with what's happening in that picture. So describe to me the process or what's happening in this picture. Yep, one-way monologue. Okay, good. So yeah, so I'll just read out randomly here. So you've got here information being given and perhaps interacted with, watching, which is very accurate. Interacted with, yes, that's debatable. Person out front is talking, audience sitting, but not sure what they are doing mentally. Correct. That's very correct. And considering what they are hearing, images to back up spoken words. So that's where the projector comes in. One-way monologue is quite correct. Oops. And I'm just going to turn on my charger. So considering, so basically considering what's happening here, I get to know my audience and I get to know what you guys are thinking at the moment, and I can take this information and steer my presentation in any direction I like. So for example, let's say if I take this, where is it? Okay, this one here. The audience is listening and engaging with the information being presented by the presenter, how is it engaging here? So I could ask the questions back to the audience, like, how is it engaging and how do I make it engaging? So really, it's again, like this session is entitled, it's about letting me in. So I'm letting you into the discussion and talking about, what's happening in this picture. And then I can present some more ideas, and then we can have some more polls or some more questions out there on that. So that's a kind of an example. I won't go into more deeply, but I think, just type in there for me. Is there a lot of kind of engagement, or is it kind of low level engagement, do you think? And just type it in this screen for me, the same screen. You can actually press, if you want to change your answer, you can just press clear the response. Yeah, low level engagement, that's correct. And so now I get to ask you questions and find out what your thoughts are. So yeah, it is low level engagement. So I understand that you understand that it is low level engagement. If, for example, if you're doing a sermon or something like that, say like a Bible verse or something, you could ask a question and get them to ask, well, what do you think of this verse before you start talking about it? Because that's what I did. I asked, what do you think about this picture? And then I talk about, well, do you think it's engagement? How high is the engagement? Okay, so I'll just move on that. So now I just want to get into the theory side of things about learning, and also using some of these tools here just to give you an idea how I use them and engage my kind of learners as well. So think about something you're good at, something that people say that you're really good at. Example, dancing, creative writing, arts, data visualization, anything at all on that, home maintenance, for example. So, that was the wrong, don't go to that one there, just keep on the website, the same website. But I wanted to ask you, how did you become good at this? How did you become good at what you've chosen? So there's 5 taxonomies there, or five groups, and I want you to choose one of the 5 on that for me. Okay, and then come over here, and I know, sorry, I just haven't changed the other website, but just continue to use this website here for me. So up the top here. Okay, good work. Right. And as you can see, I mean, I'm looking at this, and and the audience is looking at this as well, and they get to know what others are thinking and how they acquire their skills, and I get to see how I acquire my skills, and it changes the way, the direction of my presentation, or the way I wanted to engage with my audience. So, for example, if there was a lot of people that says, say, for example, if they pick lecture here, then I would go, okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about lectures. What about lectures? How did you learn those skills through lectures? What was important about it? Okay, so trial and error, practicing, someone showing me mentoring. Now, I've done this for a number of years, and I'm not surprised because the answer really is kind of around these 3 here. Probably the biggest one is actually this one here. But today we've got 30% and 40% is trial and error. But the majority, over the number of years, it's about practicing. You can see here everything from these 3 here is all active. And when I mean active, there's that. There's the learning, getting the information, getting the foundational information, getting the theory, and trying it out and making mistakes. Like someone showing you, if someone is showing you, then they would be releasing the information, and then the tension is now you're doing it. And practicing is the same thing. You've got to get the right information. Sometimes you might even want to try it out first. You make a mistake and then you keep practicing. Trial and error is the same as well. So you make mistakes, you learn from that, you move on, and you keep going on that. So learning or engagement is where there is tension and release. So if I sit here and get talking to you, is really just releasing. And that's what we call, really, the graph is kind of like a straight line like that, which happens a lot because, in churches, that's what we normally do. In lecture halls, we normally very much just talk for about 2 hours. So really, the formula for really kind of engagement is about the tension and the release here on that. And similar to how you would, this is how you would learn the same thing. So I just wanted to show you a little bit more, and that everything in life has a wave. So if there's energy, there's wave. So for example, the water waves, so you can go to the beach and you see the water. There's waves there, there's movement. Light has a wave as well. We've got the highs and then the lows, the highs, lows, high, lows. And it goes through all that. Now, every matter has electrons and protons, and they also vibrate, which means there's energy in that. This one here is the brainwave. It's a picture of a brainwave, and when you have a picture like this, you get this, which is relaxed, light meditation, creative, super learning, conscious. So what that means is we learn best when we relax, and we learn best when there's wine, the brain will learn when there's waves like this. So you've got a lot of the ups and downs on that. That's how we're programmed, and that's how we receive information, and that's how we learn as well. So I'll just go on. Now, if you have a look at the, like say for example, if you're watching a movie, if there's the director and the script writers, if they do it properly, then they would have certain points in that story where there's tension and release on that. And that's how you enjoy your movie. The same thing goes with presentation as well. And presenting to an audience or doing a sermon, you've got to, how do you engage it is through those tension and release. This is the Aristotle's 3 acts. If anyone's ever heard of the Aristotle's 3 acts, if you just put in your chat session there, number 1, meaning that you have heard of it. 0 means you haven't heard of it. So while you're doing that, I just want to say that Aristotle's 3 acts is what Hollywood uses to make their stories. Not just Hollywood, every movie directors, scriptwriters, they would use this formula. And it is my focus on when I was at uni was to do research into the tension and release and what does that mean in terms of learning and engagement. So if we break that up, there you've got the tension, then the release, the tension, then the release again. And then usually at the beginning, sometimes if you have a look at the beginning of the movie or the lecture, or if you want to do your presentation, sometimes you can have a low tension, low risk, and then medium tension, medium release, and then you've got the high one. So those movies right at the end where you go, there's no hope, and the character is right at the edge of the cave, meeting the big dragon, and the big dragon's got all these powers, and how is he going to overcome it? And then all of a sudden he overcomes it, and then there's a release on that. So, it is a formula, but subconsciously we ourselves are engaged through using this kind of structure or programming. Our brain or I don't know if there's any facts on it, but spiritually, I can't talk about the spiritual side of it, but our brain basically says that we are programmed to digest information and also to be engaged in a way that is designed in this kind of structure. So this type of structure like that. So it doesn't have to be third act, Aristotle's third act, like you got to have this big one here. Some people can be reversed. Some presentation can be reversed. So just to conclude that, if we have this setup where it's passive, like you said, it's low engagement, then there is only release and there's not much tension. So, and then as a result, learning doesn't take place. So here's another example. This is another setup of Zoom where there's a lot of people. How do we get the audience involved in that? Some great thinkers who talk about these things here. So Roland Barthes is a theorist and also philosopher. A lot of the Hollywood guys, a lot of the storytelling, digital media designers. Roland Barthes is an expert in semiotics and the study of symbols and signs. And he talks about the progression of story involves binary opposites. You can't progress anything. Your brain waves won't move unless you have binary opposites. So that tension and release there, light and darkness. So Dr. Eric Mazur talks about, he's a well-known physicist, professor of physics in Harvard. And the last 15 years, he's been involved in learning innovations, understanding how humans learn, and using technology and also spaces to understand how humans learn, and we put that together. So he talks about facts, which is just releasing facts. You can forget facts, but you cannot forget understanding. Understanding requires that graph, that tension and release, again, like watching those movies. A colleague of mine who's a neuroscientist lecturer, and she talks about you can only grow brain cells if you do something active. Again, think about that graph. Benjamin Franklin's talk about if you involve a person, then they will learn. But if you tell them, then they will forget. Todorov, which is I think he's a Russian storyteller, professor of storytelling, understands about narrative structures, and he talks about equilibrium, disequilibrium, then new equilibrium, meaning that there's that structure there which engages the audience on that. So just Paulo Ferreira, which is Brazilian, he's a professor of education, and he talks about engaging people in the teaching and learning exchange as opposed to transmission. So, this picture behind you see here is mostly transmission, and it's adopted by after the Second World War, when the Western world needed to educate people quickly as much as possible to get the economy back on board. And there's a lot of lives that were lost, and so they needed to retrain the remaining population. And what they did was use the transmission model, which is the Ford auto model, the production line. So having a lot of people present that information to lots and lots of people. You don't know where their level of engagement is at. It doesn't really matter as long as you just release it. Sometimes you hear the term of the tree of knowledge is at the front of the class, which is kind of the model of the transmission model. Over here in the green, doing things and thinking about what they are doing, which is what I like. And that's the goal of engagement, is to understand how do we make invite the audience to do things with us, and then reflect on things, and then thinking about what they're doing. Benjamin Bloom, who developed the Bloom's taxonomy, but also coined the term about multiple intelligence. And he talks about intelligence, the high form intelligence are reflection and evaluation. And funny enough, I'd like to connect that back to Jesus, where he talks about repentance, because repentance involves reflection and evaluation of self. And, it is the highest form of intelligence on that. And it's connected to humility as well. So the other the other thing you could do, some presenters would also, with Aristotle's kind of graph here, the tension and release, some people reverse it as well and give the more controversial questions right at the beginning. They kind of take you to right at the beginning here and ask the hard questions, and then start to, let's talk about it. Let's get involved and talk more about the topic. So here's an example. Say, for example, if I was the pastor and I wanted to talk about fear in the last 2-3 months, you know, people panic buying. Who's your God? You know, are we idolizing something else through fear in the last 2 months with the coronavirus? So I would maybe start with a question like, what product is the biggest sales increase in the market at the moment? So without any further ado, if you can just get your mobile phone, and I'd like to get to know your thoughts on which product do you think that people would have the most they wanted to consume the most, or the discretionary products that they would buy the most in terms of fear in the market. Cool. Great, very interesting. Well, the answer is, I'll just wait for everyone to finish there. So it looks like hand sanitizer makes a lot of sense. Wow, toilet paper's at 9%, which is the same as medical, mask and water. Vitamins at 18%. So vitamins and hand sanitizer is coming in front, and then vitamins. So here's an example, and then I can talk about fear, what's happening with the culture of fear at the moment, you know, in our church or in the world, and people panic buying, and then I get into more of the of my talk on that. So I will give you the answer to this, but in the next few slides, so you're just going to have to hold on to that. So I guess I'm just trying to build the tension there. Okay, another way I'm going to start to up the ante a bit here. Some of the questions I'd like to use. So, for example, here, you know, when Christians speak of grace, they mean God's what, you know, and then if my sermon was about grace, great, and then I get to understand the audience, what their thoughts are, and I go, well, you know what? Turn next to your turn to the person next to you, and let's talk about what's God's grace mean. Okay, great. So if I find that out, the other thing I could do to engage the audience is, like I said before, is asking them to turn to the person next to them, and then ask why did you vote for that answer, and see if they can persuade each other to find the right answer. Because I can see here there seems to be a variety of different answers here. Mercy is probably coming at the front, but what is God's grace? And we talk about it. Anyway, so I've got the answer for this one here. We can go into breakout rooms where we can discuss what really is God's grace, and we can even debate about it. And this is where the real engagement comes in. That's the tension and the release there. But you can also do that even if you're doing online, talk amongst yourselves within the family. And then what I do is I can just clear the response after they've spoken about it next to another person at church or online at home with their family. I can clear the response, and after everyone's discussed about it, let's vote again, see if we got a different answer on that. And this is where the engagement comes to life, because now things are starting to change, because you have to learn to reflect and hear other people's opinion. If it makes sense, you might have to change your mind on that. Okay, 100%. Great. All right. That is the correct answer. It's mercy. I mean, that's coming from one of the websites. It's actually mercy is the correct answer on that. Anyway, I'll go on. Okay. What about this one here? All I did was use a graph. I made a graph in Microsoft Word, and then I just upload this picture up onto that. And then if I was talking about thankfulness, okay, gratitude, thankfulness this Sunday, let's talk about it. What do you think about thankfulness? In which month did you feel the most thankfulness? And then at what part of the day? At early in the morning or really late at night? So just put in plot in your answer. Doesn't, it just kind of, gives me an indication of what, it doesn't have to be accurate, but let's have a go at it. Okay, so we've got a few number of people here in March. Yeah, March, April, okay, up there. And then we've got early guys who feel more thankful around January before the coronavirus. Then we got here February, coming into that the beginning of the coronavirus around around the 4th of Feb. I remember that date, the 4th of Feb, is because I think I was in Wollongong Uni, and they were talking about this virus being contagious very, very fast. And then, so you've got here, some people here are thankful around the beginning, and then you've got here some people thankful towards the March and April area, because if I was talking about gratitude, I could link it to this graph here where, the number of infections around here, and you feel thankful. Well, I think when some people can, face times where it's uncertainty, but yet they still feel thankful, and then I can, continue on with the discussion or my presentation on that. So I'm going to up the ante, a bit more controversial question here. Here's another example where I can use another way of presenting. So if I was talking about a sensitive subject such as porn here, porn is good for society, which is quoted by one of the surveys. Where do you think, which people, segment of people do you think, demographic, do you think would be applicable to this comment here, for example? Okay, good. So as you can see here, I get to know my audience, their understanding of what's happening in this, I call this a pandemic, especially towards our society at the moment, more accessible. It's easily accessible. It's a pandemic. And so if I was to talk about this with my audience, then I wanted to get to know what they feel. And the good thing about this is it's being anonymous. Okay, great. So yes, the stats does show, okay, that the number of people who associate with this quote here is usually around this demographic. The more kind of older crowd don't ever use this stuff here. So that was from, I'll find out for you where the name of the survey. Josh McDonald Ministry and Covenant Eyes have commissioned a Barna group to do a major study on pornography. So yes, so that is correct. So if I wanted to frame it again, Christians think pastors should resign if they are found using porn. So here's a more kind of touchy subject. This one here involves where if I was doing online, I would ask people within my group to talk about it, to chat, in my family to chat, and what do you think? What are your thoughts on that? If this was at a church face-to-face, I would say turn to the other person, let's have a 5-minute discussion. What do you think? Now, again, this is a demonstration of the tension and release. So I'm actually producing the tension and doing that. So I'm starting my presentation with a more kind of touchy question, and then I go on from there. But I'm getting my audience to be involved. Let's discuss about it. Let's talk about it. What do you think? Do you think we should ask the pastors to stand down, or should we, what ways can we can address this? I won't get you guys to answer this. I'll keep going. I want you guys to vote for this one. It's much easier. So what would you think? What would be the best use of the answer? And this is how I would do it. I get my audience to vote first. So, yeah. So if you wanted to vote, see what you think. Again, this app here is so anonymous that it makes people feel safe on it. Hopefully we'll feel safe. I can't kind of assume that they feel safe, but I feel that hopefully with this app they can feel safe. Yeah, you can see now 75%, 25%, and I think it'll stay dynamic there a little bit, but you can see put them on a probationary program and seek help, or seek help but ask to step down until further notice. Okay, so the audience gets to see what other people are thinking as well. And now what I do is I go, okay, all right, now that you think about that, and there seems to be a majority of people that think 78% should have a probationary program. If I clear the response, and this is how I engage my audience, is I ask them first individually what they think. I get the results, and then I say to them, turn around to the other person and let's discuss. What do you think? How would you handle this? And then they would come back, and then we would re-vote again. So, when you get when you get some discussion going, and I would say be open-minded about it. If the other person makes sense, maybe you should change your vote on that. So think about those things. And the other person may also use references to the Bible and how we treat people with addictions as well. Okay, great. So I won't ask you to re-vote. I probably get the same answer because we didn't get a chance to discuss on that. So, more controversial questions. Why does Yahweh command genocide? Why would that's another way of doing it. So, can everyone just type in their response on this one? Say, for example, if I was doing a sermon on God's grace related to genocide. And you can see now that, people are going to Deuteronomy chapter 20. So they are doing things. They're doing things and thinking about what they're doing. And that was the quote from Active Learning. Yeah, justice, have to look closer at the context. Okay, yep. And then I would go, okay, if you wanted to have a look at closer to the context, then turn around to the other person that's with you and have a chat. What do you mean by context? And then, you might put up the answer, you might not, and you can keep going on with the talk. It is the reluctant judgment of God on these cities, tribes, once off and not repeated. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very, very controversial kind of questions. I get this kind of question, at the university, some of my colleagues talk about, well, God, promotes genocide. I mean, these guys are pretty much atheists. So they usually try and find ways to disprove of what God's grace is. So Israel won't follow their evil practices. Yep, God is giving the Israelites their inheritance. Okay, so you could see here it opens up for more discussion on that. So I won't, same kind of question here, but have a look at this one here. It says, why does the church say God did not create evil when he himself claims he did in Isaiah? Have a look. And then it makes people wanting to have a look at Lamentations now and Amos on that. And then talk about it. Isaiah as well. Does anyone want to contribute to this type of question? Again, I'm just using this to create that tension for discussion and then talk so that I can use it, say, for example, in my talk. Yeah, interesting question. Yeah, those I just thought keep typing, but I show you this verse here. So Isaiah 45:7, I form the light and create darkness. So create darkness, I make peace and create evil. So yeah, so here you've got the questions of can you create evil, or is that more abstract? So I'm taking that means abstract basically means is it something that's already kind of exists in existence, you mean, or question the word create. Doesn't say he created. Yeah. Okay. And create evil. Okay. Is it not from the mouth of the Most High that both calamities and good things come? So it is a very controversial kind of question, but it really kind of opens up for more discussion. And, imagine if you had home group and you have, even if you've got a lot of people in your church and you're doing this face to face, get them to talk about it amongst each other before you continue with your sermon. Darkness and disaster don't mean evil. Okay, yep. God sends disaster, not the same as evil. Yep. God has sovereign control over evil, but not ultimately culpable for evil. Yep. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to pause there now, and I'm going to go back to the audience again, and let's unmute our microphone and let's talk about it. How did you find that, and what did you think about those tension and release about humans, how they are programmed to actually be engaged through tension and release?
Hey Phil, Thomas here. Really helpful, the tension and release thing, and thanks for the examples that you've given us. I've just got a question about if we're doing an online Zoom kind of session with people, I would tend to assume that they're by themselves sitting at their computer. And so how can we get them to interact with their neighbour or do that sort of interaction and then, re-vote or that sort of thing?
Good question, Thomas, because that's the next activity I'm going to be doing, showing you guys, called breakout rooms.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah. The other thing is I'm part of a home group, and it's like when I'm sitting in a home group, sometimes the whole family is all surrounded by one laptop, or husband and wife, so they can actually talk with themselves as well. So you can have that kind of setting.
Hey, can I just jump in with the second question? How do you, love the responses that you've been showing us, like it's a really cool tool. How do you helpfully interact with really wrong responses or unhelpful responses? I guess that's two separate questions. But yeah, how do you interact with the responses, particularly if they're wrong or unhelpful?
Yeah, I get that with my students. Sometimes the responses don't make sense, so I can go deeper and I go, "What do you mean by that?" Or like, if it's not helpful, then I just ignore it. I know it probably sounds a bit kind of surprising, but sometimes I just go, well, if I was transparent, this is in a classroom setting, but I'm thinking about the classroom setting is I would just go on to the next comment on that. Now, I'm going to show you a feature where they get to ask questions, and if it's not appropriate, then there's a feature in there where you can hide it.
I'm just thinking more often than not, so it's easy to ignore disruptive, unhelpful comments that I can imagine in a university setting you'll get your fair share of those. I'm more thinking of comments that people are genuine about but are actually really, really like out of the ballpark or unhelpful, but they're genuine still. Yeah.
Well, something like that, and I mean, I'm inviting everyone else to get involved here because you probably have more experience in terms of like questions that are genuine but not appropriate at that time. How would you do it? But I would say, I would address it and say, yeah, let's talk about that one later, maybe. Anyone have any other comments?
Yeah, that's what I'd say, Philip. You acknowledge the comment and then say, yep, interesting comment. Maybe we can talk about that later on offline or just the two of us or something like that. So the person isn't ignored, but you're also not chasing the red herring or whatever it is.
Thanks, Al.
Does anyone have any experience as well, like having kind of questions or comments that may not be related, that it might be digressing to something else, and how did you manage that?
I mean, I've had years of it with when over in the eastern suburbs with people who are mentally ill standing up in the middle of sermons or walking in or whatever. So person to person, it's not too bad. Acknowledge it, thank them, ask can we talk after the talk or whatever. I don't know. Does that work online on Zoom? I guess it's easier to mute someone with a button than throw them out of a meeting. But
yeah, I mean, being with this technology, because it's anonymous, it helps people to speak out as well on that. But at the same time, as a person who manages or facilitates the discussion and the audience, then you pick your you kind of pick your battle and say, look, we revisit that some other time individually or something like that.
Hey, I will say that, even though I've asked this question, in my experience, it's more likely that people won't say what they really think. And so I'm excited about what you've shown us, Phil, that it might actually encourage more genuine comments.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because that's the reason why I find this to be a bit more kind of, well, not just a bit, but depending on how you structure it, it really is engaging, because what happens is it creates a safe space for people. But the other thing is I really kind of get to know my audience and where they're at and their opinions. And then I can kind of steer my talk or the way I wanted to talk. Like for now, I I could be spontaneous and just go, okay, now that you've spoken about, inappropriate comments or comments that are genuine but not kind of related to this, let's do an exercise on this. Let's talk about it. Let's go back and let's let one person write a comment that doesn't relate to that. And how do you feel about it? I can, because of time, I'm running out of time. But yeah, I could do all sorts of things. It's very much what we call formative. Formative basically means that you when you present something or when you teach, when formative is involved is when you find out what your audience is feeling, then you change the way you talk so that it is aligned with what their knowledge is as well on that. So summative is like right at the end where you do give them a big exam on that. Yeah. All right, so I'll just continue to move on. Now we're going to talk about a little bit more high-level critical thinking stuff and high-level engagement, which includes the breakout rooms as well. So I'll just share this screen again. Good question, Thomas. Thank you very much for those questions. Okay, so after talking last week with a number of pastors there, now I assume that people are doing recordings and then sending it out to audiences, their members. They may do some sermons, record them, or may do it live and then sending them out. Then you also got worship, which is live or recording, actually a lot of recording, not live, online. Then you got Q&A sometimes where it could be in real time where they have a Q&A session, or you could ask a question and say, bring your answer next Sunday or next Monday in the home group or something like that. So, and then during the week activities and all that. I think everyone here is kind of like fitting in this kind of model. It doesn't tick all the boxes, but I assume that all of this is everyone's kind of using that kind of model there. So if you do, just put in a 1 for me in the chat session. And so everyone gets to see if you're doing that, or if you're not, then just put a 0 on that for me. I assume, everyone's got a kind of, a 1 there because, it all fits in that model. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the home group model, the groups, or even the question and answer model as well. So, okay. I was going to ask that question, but I'll just keep going. Oh, by the way, the answer to that is oatmeal, 441%, by the way. Isn't that interesting that a lot of people seem to kind of panic buy oatmeal because it's got a longer shelf life on that. And then you've got medical mask, which is 428%. Coming in at second, hand sanitizer, 20%. And that's where everyone they bought the most. So you can see here, I'm kind of like, I can hold back on the answer and talk about it a little bit more and then, release the answer later. It's all this tension and release, and depends on how you want to structure it. Okay, activity for high engagement. So here, I'm just going to give you an example. Very simple. We're not going to talk about philosophies or theology or anything like this. This is going to just be what we live with everyday life. So say, for example, if I was giving out information, presenting about thermodynamics and atoms and protons and heating objects. So if you heat a solid, for example, all atoms have more energy if you heat them. Because what you're doing is you're giving heat, you're giving more energy. And what they do is they move vigorously. And when they move vigorously, they move apart. So the distance between them increases. So the solid gets bigger. So imagine if you heat this nut up, then it will increase as well because the atoms move vigorously and the distance move apart. Okay. So having said that, and that was the end of my presentation, short presentation, but these are the facts here. I want you to do this for me first. The question is, what happens to the square hole in the middle? This one here. Does it get bigger? Does it get smaller? Or does it stay the same? So I want you to now say, for example, I'm doing this with a group of my church members talking about this stuff. I mean, not thermodynamics, but anyway, we'll just do this fun one. Does it get bigger, smaller, or stays the same? Let's vote individually. Okay, 67, 50. Oh, wow. It's changing a lot. Nobody says stay the same. Okay. By the way, it's not the right, I mean, I don't know what the right answer, but yeah. Okay, so 25% says it's bigger, and the majority says it gets smaller. So that's great, because what I'm going to do now is, if I was in a group, I'm just going to clear the response here. Okay, and I'm going to get you into a breakout room. Now, before I get you into a breakout room, I'm just going to show you a few features in Zoom just to keep in mind. When you get into a breakout room, you'll see on the left top hand corner here which room you're in. So you're in room 1, 2, or 3. I might just, I think there's 11 of you guys, so I might put you guys in probably 2. Yeah, two groups for now. So 1, 6 and 1, 5 on that. And then just notice that there's a time here, 10 minutes, okay? So I'm going to put in a 10-minute, and then after 10 minutes, it'll come back to the main group here. So, sorry, the main classroom. So that's what I'm going to get you to do, and I want you to think about this. I want you to hang on, go back. Okay. I want you to talk about with the other participants or the members in your group. Tell them why you pick your answer and give them logic and based on the facts, okay? Make sure you use the facts here. These are the facts. So say, for example, these are Bible verses, facts. Anyway, so use those facts and persuade the other person to change their answer by using your logic. And the other person, everyone has a say, and everyone discuss and debate on why the answer is the right answer on that. And also make sure that you keep your answers flexible, because you could be wrong, okay? You'll be, I won't say anymore, but yeah, so basically be prepared to change your answer on that. Okay, so let's talk about it. I'll just change you into 2 groups, and I'm going to go automatic. Here we go. Okay, so everyone just, when you're ready, just click on yes, go into your groups. Okay, everyone, welcome back to the main room again. And I'm going to get you guys to vote again and tell me what you think. Okay, well, stays the same, 20%. Stays the same. Okay, so in the interest of time, because we're running out of time, but this is what you could do with your group as well. So using breakout rooms, we could vote individually and then get people to persuade each other in breakout rooms, and then we see the voting out of this. And then we could do a bit more. This method is called peer instruction, and I use this a lot in my classroom but I also teach it at the university. And it's not my method. It's done by Dr. Mazur from, he's a professor of physics. And I've just copied his question. And this is his question about the hole getting smaller or bigger on that. But yeah, so this is a way of engaging the audience. Sometimes you get disagreements, and in my classroom, if they get disagreements, there's emotional attachment there. That's called learning. That's the tension as well. So I still stay calm and go, wow, there's going to be debates. It sometimes gets heated as well, but you as a facilitator, as the person who who can come in and go, well, think about it. If it gets smaller, does those atoms go further apart or moving closer? So you add that extra information into it, and you can facilitate and navigate their discussion. But what they're doing is they're skin in the game, and when there's skin in the game, then there's interaction and engagement as well. So let's have a look at it. That's the method there. So you talk about it, you talk about it, and then you ask the question, get them to vote individually, and then you check for percentages. If there's correct answer, you move on, all of the correct. But if you don't, mostly you don't, then you go back and you talk about it again, which is called the peer instruction here. So the peer discussion. And then you debrief at the end. Now, I won't bore you with saying, oh, let's talk about this, because we're going to run out of time. But the question is this activity only for right and wrong answer? No, because this activity, you can ask questions, subjective questions. And, in the Bible, there's so many things that can, we can talk about life that has grey areas. So, I use this activity with lecturers in social science, ethics. We talk about ethics and morals, and then we get them to vote as well. So it doesn't have to be right and wrong answers. I think the more kind of grey areas create more interesting discussions. Like, for example, should church leaders be stepped down if, about porn addiction? So that's an example there, and then they discuss, which provides a very good engagement. So I'm just going to use a metaphor here. You can see the penguins. If they get cold, guess what happens? They come together, and then when it's a hot day, hot weather, they seem to move apart. Okay? So I'll just move on. Here's the metal. Okay, so here's the hole. That's the original hole. That's how big it is. And if this gets bigger, then these atoms need to go out that way. And so you can see the distance between them gets bigger from the original on that. And this is Dr. Mazur's work on physics. So part of the question, I like to use this because it creates a lot of fun, but it's also, people sometimes can be set in their minds in terms of their answers, and so it challenges them as well. But that's where the engagement is. That's the learning, because it challenges them on that. So here's another question. So if I had to bring it back to the kind of church and environment, then I could just reframe this question. People vote, let's discuss, and let's vote again, and then let's vote again next week. You could even leave this question during the week, and people can vote during the week, and then come back to that. Okay, so I won't bore you with the science behind all this work, but really, just one thing. They found out that traditional lecturing or traditional talking, students, and this is only in the university setting, is that students 1.5 times fail more when all we do is just the traditional way of talking to the audience. Okay, so I won't. H5P, I know we're running out of time now, but H5P is where you can create your own video, upload it to YouTube, and then in the middle of the video, say for example, if you ask your members to watch a video, and then in the middle of the video, you might want to pose a question. It'll pause, and then you can type in a question in there. And then that's a good way to engage the audience during the week. So you say, hey guys, watch this video and answer the questions in the middle on that. Okay. Kahoot. So last thing, I want to just do Kahoot there. So can everyone just go to their mobile phone for me? And this is good for like kids' church, even adults, home group. Kids love it. But you know, I've done this with adults as well, which is really good. So if you go to this website called Kahoot IT, and then I'm just going to open up a site. Okay, so here's my Kahoot admin page, and I'm just going to play this. Can everyone type in this code for me? Type in the PIN. And type in your name. So, hang on. So, I'll just turn off the... So, yeah, so just, that's the website there, and that's the code for it. So, I'll just wait until everyone gets on board. Dean, how many participants have we got then? 10. Oh, okay, yeah.
10 at the moment, yeah.
10. Okay, so we've got 6, 6, 8, and who else are we missing on there? All right, cool. Okay, so 10. All right, we're going to go and start playing. All right, so if you have a look at your phone, you can answer the questions on your phone. So have a look at the screen here. How this board is described. Okay, we keep going. So the triangle and the square, or not the square, the diamond has the most votes. Okay. All right, Al, you're in front, but it's still 0 because they're all wrong answers. Okay. Next one. The New Testament was written in what language? Okay, since I think I take it everyone's senior in their church, they should know the answer to this. Okay, AJ is at the front now. Next one. Green is correct. So as you can see here, the scoreboard gets updated, and it's fun for the kids, but also for home group as well. Yeah. So Pentecost is a holiday that commemorates. Okay. I'm not surprised that no one got that wrong. Okay. And I think this is the second last one.
Can you change your answer after you submit it?
I don't think you can. Oh, I'm surprised that some people get it wrong, this one here. Okay. All right. And last one. Very tricky question. The right answer is 73. So congratulations. AJ is number 3. And then Tom Patterson, number 2. And number 1 is Goldie Pasta. Ow.
Good on you.
Okay.
I don't know why you guys think that would be me, but yeah.
Okay, so basically that's it. That's something that you can use with home groups, anything. You can even do it face-to-face as well. Okay, so last feature that I wanted to show you. Say, for example, if you got any questions, so on your phone here, go back to poll again, go back to this website, this part here, and I want you all to type me a question you would like to ask. Okay, good. Okay, as you can see, answers starting to get updated. Okay, now if you press refresh on your mobile phone, you also see all the questions updated as well. Now, here's the thing. Say, for example, if I was doing a sermon or a recording of a Bible teaching, and then I send it out to the church, and then I would say, guys, go to this website here, write in your questions, and then vote for the top questions that you want to be answered. So here, not only you get to enter in the question, but you also get to vote.
We get examples of yes.
So you get to vote for the kind of questions you would like to be answered, and the most number of votes, the questions get placed up the top. So, for example, you as a pastor may go, I want to answer the first 3 questions this Sunday. So I could go here where it says hide. See here, I can hide all the other questions. I can roll my mouse on here and hide it. And then here I go, well, okay, poll everywhere that seems to be voted the most. So I might vote as well. I might say, okay, good. I might go, I'll vote this one up. Okay. All right. So it seems like poll everywhere is the top question that I wanted to ask. I just press the star button and it highlights that question. Now, if I was at church or I'm in Zoom, the whole audience can see this question here, and now I can answer this question if it was a Bible teaching. Okay. Is Poll Everywhere free? Yes, it's free up to 25 members. But then if you've got a church of 100 members, then you've got to pay. I think it's $120 a year US, for 700 members. You can have 700 members vote for this Poll Everywhere for $120 US. By the way, I'm not getting paid for actually promoting this technology. My job is to understand how to engage the audience and find the technology that helps it to engage and find the strategies as well. So hopefully I might ask Al to send them this recording, and then I could say, can you give me a free account because I'm promoting your product? Anyway, so yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. And then the next question is, and I could just put on that star there. Hang on. So next question is, how do you help people who don't have smartphones or who don't know how to use them? That's a very, very good question on that. I guess with that, I might have to get someone to show them in person. It is really easy to use. If you don't have a smartphone, then you can use your laptop or you can use your computer on a browser. Even if they haven't got a computer, anything at all, then I think that's the limit, I guess. At church, people usually have their smartphones, so you can connect with them through that way. But if they don't, then there's no other way on that. You can use tablets as well. So this pretty much depends on smartphones and tablets, computers. Okay, next question. Oops. Okay, are users identify in any way on the poll everywhere? Yes, it can in the setting. I went to the setting and I just say anonymous. You can have users be identified if they type in their name as well. So I just in the setting you can say, when they go into poll everywhere, allow them to type in their name or type in an alias. And last question. I mean, I promised the first 3 questions, but I thought I'll just do the last one. How do you load up PowerPoints to poll everywhere? Oh, you don't. You do it the other way. You just prepare your PowerPoint, and then you download a plugin, and then you install that plugin, and it goes onto the PowerPoint. And I'll show you. Here's my PowerPoint, and there's a plugin, and then now this is my PowerPoint here. I've got this little option here, which says poll everywhere, and then I can just, new activity or insert an activity. So I can even do that, or I can just go to the website and then create my questions and insert them into my slide. Like for example, this is a slide here, and that's the next slide, and that's the question from poll everywhere on that. I use it. This is a conference that I did, the International Teaching Conference. So I use these questions and audiences vote. The top 5 questions, because we didn't have a lot of time, top 5 questions get answered. So anyway, so that's pretty much it. That's the end of my presentation. I've got a lot more to show, but anyway, that's the crux of it, and the kind of, they're my favorite activities that I show as well, especially the peer instruction, which you can use it in conferences and church and home groups. Yeah, all that stuff. Anyway, that's it coming from me. So that's it.
Well, thanks, Philip. I mean, I'm scratching my head a bit on the technology. I'll catch up. If people have particular questions for you, is it okay if we contacted you through Dean? Would that be okay?
Yeah. So,
or do you want to give us? Are you? Yep.
I'll probably get a collection of questions, and then I'll do a recording to.
Okay. Yep. So people send through their questions. You might do answer them all in one go on a recording.
Yeah. So I'll just share my screen for the last time, and here is my email if you want to just send it to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're 2 L's in Phillip. I've been writing that wrong. My apologies.
Oh, no. I mean, 1 L will go to my mailbox anyway.
Okay.
I had contingencies for people who make mistakes.
Well, people spell Alan with 2 L's too, so I feel your pain. I'm only one. Mate, thank you very much for your time and sharing that with us. We can send you particular questions, and we'll put this up on the FIEC website, and also make it available for Geneva Push and Reach and Multiply New Zealand.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of small group leaders who could use this as well.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind like some feedback as well. So I always love to hear what other people's thoughts are. So yeah, please send me an email and tell me what your thoughts are. What do you think my content and what I've kind of presented there, and whether it's helpful or not. That would be great.
Okay. And we'll also have a list on the website of all the websites that you've mentioned.
Yeah. I'll send out a little handout on that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Righto. Yep. All right, mate. Good. Thank you very much. Any other comments from anyone? Okay.
That's it.
Okay. You can't finish one of these without saying a prayer, so we better do it. Okay. Father, we ask, thank you for the technology that helps us so much in these strange times. Thank you for Phillip and his many years of experience. Ask, please, that you'd make us diligent in doing our best to be communicators of your word. And we ask your blessing on Phillip as he makes the move to Cowra. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Phillip. We'll see you again soon, mate.
Thanks, Al. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.